Far beyond the visible spectrum of Earth's skies, something ancient and unknown has arrived. A fleet of ships sleek and alive with technology that bends space itself, glides silently into orbit. Cloaked from human perception, they are neither here to invade nor to interfere. They are the Varelians, a civilization millions of years older than humanity, scientists, philosophers, and stewards of peace across the galaxy. The Varelians are observers, not conquerors. For eons, they have quietly monitored developing civilizations throughout the universe, judging their trajectory and potential for joining the greater galactic community. Earth is their latest subject, a young world teeming with life, bursting with creative energy and already broadcasting strange signals into the stars: music, languages, cries for help, laughter, and war. Hovering in low Earth orbit, their cloaked vessels are outfitted with advanced sensory arrays capable of mapping every human city, decoding every spoken language, and even reading the emotional frequencies of large populations. Their mission is not to make contact yet, but to understand. The first impressions are promising. From space, Earth is breathtaking, a blue marble swirling with oceans, mountains, forests, and shimmering city lights. The Varelians watch herds of animals migrate, trees exchange gases in symbiotic dance, and humans creating art, building cities, laughing together under the same sun. In the alien council chambers aboard the flagship SaiFi, some members express cautious hope. This species may be on the cusp, says one elder, a shimmering, translucent being whose thoughts ripple across the room like a musical current. They strive, they build, they dream. Others are more skeptical. They divide, they pollute, they conquer, replies another, tapping through a holographic record of Earth's conflicts, environmental destruction, and political unrest. But, for now, judgment is withheld. Observation begins in earnest. The Varelians focus on various regions of Earth. Teams are assigned to analyze culture, history, economic systems, and social behavior. At first, the data is bewildering. Humans are complex, capable of deep compassion, and terrifying cruelty. The aliens are fascinated by Earth's religions, philosophies, and myths. They try to understand the human soul. What drives these beings who write poetry about the stars, yet build weapons to erase each other from existence? One Varelian, a youthful analyst named Visa, becomes particularly enchanted with Earth's music and literature. She watches humans dance in the streets during festivals, weep in theaters, and protest in the face of injustice. There is beauty here, she transmits to the council. Perhaps more than we expected. In this early stage, the Varelians do not intervene. They consider themselves guests, silent guardians evaluating whether this civilization might someday be ready for peaceful contact. Earth is added to their archives, tagged as Observation Priority Theta 7, but something looms. A warning. In the data, patterns of recurring aggression, cycles of violence, political tension escalating beyond diplomacy. While some aliens see Earth's duality as part of its evolution, others grow uneasy. And so the Varelians remain, watching from above, unseen, unheard, yet very much aware. As Earth spins beneath them, seemingly unaware of the visitors above, a question lingers in the alien minds. Will this species rise to greatness or destroy itself first? What began as a hopeful observation soon turns into confusion, then horror. The Varelians, who had once looked at Earth with cautious optimism, now witness a side of humanity they were unprepared for. It starts with a small-scale regional conflict. In a densely populated city, tensions erupt over borders, resources, and ideology. Within hours, missiles streak across the sky. Buildings collapse. Sirens wail. Civilians flee. Children scream. The alien observers, who feel emotions not unlike empathy, are shaken. The Varelians don't merely see the violence, they feel it. Their sensory arrays pick up the emotional anguish radiating from the surface: fear, hatred, sorrow. The SaiFi's observation core glows red with distress as incoming data floods their systems. Scenes of bombings, executions, and scorched earth play across the holoscreens like a nightmare. On board the alien council chamber, silence falls. A high-ranking counselor named Tharun speaks first. "Is this war?" he asks, though he knows the answer. On his homeworld, war was eradicated thousands of years ago. It was a disease they cured long ago, first of their minds, then of their systems. The thought that a thriving species still embraces such madness is nearly unthinkable to him. A younger analyst, Visa, is visibly shaken. "They are killing their own kind," she whispers, voice vibrating with disbelief. "There is no external enemy, no invasion. They fight among themselves." The council scrambles to understand the reasons. Their translation algorithms sift through political speeches, military broadcasts, and news reports. They find justifications, claims of defense, retaliation, honor, sovereignty. But to the Varelians, it all feels like madness dressed in reason. Tharun grows furious. They burn their world while speaking of peace. They cry for unity while tearing each other apart. But another voice counters. Elder Cirella, wise and measured, reminds the council that the Varelians, too, once knew war. "We must not forget who we were," she says. "Before our enlightenment, we too fought for land, power, pride. Humanity is younger than we were then. Perhaps they are simply not yet ready." Yet doubt begins to take root. For the first time, a serious question is raised in the chamber. Should Earth be abandoned? Some believe it is too dangerous to continue observation, that exposure to such emotional and moral chaos could destabilize younger Varelians. Others argue that this is precisely when the planet needs to be watched most closely, that even in their bloodshed, there may be lessons to extract. Meanwhile, the conflict on Earth intensifies. News of the war spreads across digital platforms, and the Varelians see humans reacting in real time, some cheering for their side, others grieving for the lost, many simply numb. There are also those marching in the streets pleading for peace. The contrast is jarring. The Varelians are forced to confront a painful truth. Humanity is not one thing. It is a fractured mosaic of tribes, values, traumas, and dreams. Capable of beauty, but also capable of unimaginable destruction. The first shock has occurred. The illusion of harmony has been shattered. From orbit, the Varelians continue their silent vigil. But now their mission has changed. Earth is no longer just a subject of curiosity. It is a warning. It is a mirror. It is a question the galaxy must answer. Reeling from the chaos they had just witnessed, the Varelians dig deeper into Earth's past. If humanity is to be understood, not judged, but truly understood, their history must be unraveled. And what the aliens uncover stuns even their most seasoned analysts. Using powerful quantum archives and linguistic decoders, the Varelians begin to sift through thousands of years of human records, texts, video footage, oral traditions, and artifacts. They explore every era, every continent. What emerges is not a simple story, but a long, painful pattern, an echoing cycle of violence. They begin with the earliest tribal wars, small groups clashing with stones, spears, and fire over hunting grounds. As agriculture develops and settlements rise, so too does organized conflict. Kingdoms wage war over rivers, gods, borders, and pride. Empires rise and fall in flames. The Varelians are astonished to find that violence seems to have evolved alongside civilization. The aliens watch as the Roman legions march across continents, as Mongol hordes thunder through cities, as crusaders wage holy wars in the name of faith. They analyze the transatlantic slave trade, colonization, and the industrialization of warfare. The most jarring chapters come in the modern era. 2 world wars that span the globe, followed by the invention of nuclear weapons, devices capable of annihilating all life in an instant. Visa, the young Varelian still clinging to hope, grows quiet as she reviews the footage from Hiroshima and Nagasaki. She sees children playing minutes before an explosion turns their world into ash. "They built this," she says in disbelief. "They knew what it would do. The rune is grim. This species does not merely fight. They innovate their destruction. But Elder Cirella, ever wise, urges the council not to look at the violence in isolation. We must also study what came after, she says. The peace movements, the global charters, the treaties, the regret. Indeed, the Varelians find something strange beneath the ruins of each war, a longing for peace. They see philosophers questioning the ethics of violence, artists painting anguish, survivors working tirelessly to prevent future atrocities. After every collapse, there are voices saying, "Never again." To the Varelians, this duality is bewildering. No other species they've studied has such extremes. On one side, mass, slaughter, torture, genocide. On the other, self-sacrifice, forgiveness, and the capacity to mourn even their enemies. They compare it to their own evolutionary journey. The Varelians too had a violent history, but they reached a tipping point, a convergence of empathy, as their historians call it. It took them tens of thousands of years to abandon war completely. Could humanity be standing near its own convergence? The council debates. Some fear that humanity may destroy itself before reaching that point. Others believe the constant reflection and remorse after violence could be a sign of emerging moral consciousness. Perhaps Earth is not a failed world, but an adolescent one caught between instinct and wisdom. The Varelians label their findings, species in conflict with itself. Now their task is no longer just analysis, it's witnessing evolution in real time, watching a species teeter between ruin and revelation. And so, they continue to observe, waiting for signs of either salvation or collapse. Just as despair begins to weigh heavily on the Varelian Council, something unexpected begins to emerge from the data streams flowing in from Earth. Beneath the horror of violence and the legacy of war, there are glimmers, small, stubborn signs of something else, something deeply human and deeply hopeful. It begins with the simplest images, a medic shielding a wounded child amid gunfire, strangers forming a human chain to rescue flood victims, a soldier refusing to follow an order that would harm civilians. These are not isolated incidents. As the Varelians widen their scope, they find thousands, millions of these moments woven into the fabric of human life. Visa, the young analyst who had nearly lost faith, compiles a report titled Acts of Compassion in Conflict. Zones. Her presentation to the council is quiet but powerful. She plays raw footage, a nurse performing triage in a collapsing hospital, children singing in a war-torn refugee camp, volunteers delivering food across enemy lines. They are not just victims of war, she says softly. They are resisting it in their own way. The council listens. This data contrasts sharply with the wars they've witnessed, but it's no less real. In fact, the Varelians come to see that these moments of compassion often occur because of the violence, not in spite of it. Humans, when confronted with great darkness, often shine brightest. They begin to analyze larger patterns, peace movements, civil rights campaigns, nonviolent revolutions. The Varelians are particularly fascinated by leaders who champion change without a single shot fired. Individuals like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malala Yousafzai. These people who faced oppression and violence chose empathy and dialogue instead of revenge. Elder Cirella observes, they are evolving in real time. Each generation carries the memory of suffering, and many choose differently. More data emerges, nations collaborating on humanitarian aid, global organizations dedicated to eradicating disease and poverty, environmental activists fighting to protect their planet from destruction, often at great personal cost. The Varelians witness humans risking their lives not for conquest, but to save lives. Even in cyberspace, where division often thrives, they find surprising communities where strangers support one another, grieving together, healing together, organizing relief together. A pattern becomes clear. While violence may dominate headlines, compassion quietly endures in the background, always pushing forward. One particularly moving moment leaves the entire council silent. A video, beamed live from Earth, shows a line of protesters standing silently in front of tanks. No weapons, just people, arms locked, refusing to move. Behind them, schools, hospitals, homes. Their message is simple. We will not let you destroy. This, Visa whispers, is the soul of the species. The Varelians are forced to reconsider their earlier assumptions. Perhaps humanity is not locked in a cycle of self-destruction, but struggling through a slow and painful metamorphosis. A species still ruled in part by fear, pride, and survival, but learning, through fire, what peace truly costs. Earth is far from ready, but perhaps, just perhaps, it is trying to be. The Council votes to continue observation. Hope is fragile but not foolish. They tag the planet with a new designation: moral emergence, unstable but ascending. And far above, in the silence of space, the Varelians continue to watch, not as judges but as witnesses to a civilization wrestling with itself, and reaching, however shakily, for something better. Despite signs of hope, the Varelians' optimism is soon tested to its limit. Earth, ever unpredictable, begins to tremble under the weight of its own divisions. What begins as political tension between global superpowers quickly escalates into something far more dangerous, a standoff that threatens not just regions but the entire planet. The Varelians observe with growing concern. Surveillance satellites aboard the Sithari pick up military movements, fleets mobilizing, borders tightening, nuclear silos awakening from decades of dormancy. Threats are exchanged between leaders. Communication between nations, once tense but civil, devolves into accusations, ultimatums, and silence. In the Council of Observers, a somber tone settles. Even Elder Sorella, once the strongest advocate for patience, now watches with furrowed thought ripples. This may be their final test, she says, or their final failure. The Council assembles in emergency session. Tharun argues for withdrawal. If they launch these weapons, he says, they will not only erase themselves but destabilize nearby planetary systems. Their extinction will send shockwaves through the surrounding cosmos. Visa pleads for time. We've seen the seeds of change. They must be allowed the chance to choose their future even at the brink, but time is running out. On Earth, world leaders deliver grim televised speeches. Cities conduct emergency drills. The air is thick with fear. Yet amid the madness, there is also resistance. Protesters flood capitals, demanding de-escalation. Scientists and diplomats work behind the scenes to reopen dialogue. Faith leaders call for unity, urging nations to remember their shared humanity. Still, one misstep, a misinterpreted signal, an accidental launch, could plunge Earth into irreversible destruction. Faced with this dire moment, the Varelians consider a step never taken before in their long history of observation: intervention. The debate is fierce. Their doctrine forbids interference. Civilizations must evolve on their own. To intervene is to rob a species of its natural course. But the scale of potential loss, the erasure of a sentient world, its art, its memory, its promise, hangs heavily in the air. Visa, torn between duty and desperation, proposes a compromise. A subtle nudge. No direct contact. No obvious alien signature. Just a whisper in the gears of war. The Council agrees. Barely. From orbit, a single pulse of energy is transmitted to Earth's upper atmosphere. It quietly disables key weapons systems in multiple countries. Targeting arrays freeze, command lines go dark, launch codes reset. Human engineers scramble for explanations, blaming malfunctions, cyber attacks, or solar interference. For several tense hours, the world holds its breath. And then, something remarkable happens. The silence remains unbroken. No missiles fly. No bombs fall. Slowly, communication is restored, not just technologically, but diplomatically. A message is sent from one rival nation to another. Let's talk. Peace is not declared that day, but neither is war. The fuse is snuffed out, barely. Civilians cheer, Children return to school. The skies remain blue. On the Sithari, the Varelians, exhale, if such a thing can be said of beings made of light and thought. The intervention was subtle, undetected, but effective. They record the event as Event Theta X, crisis averted via minimal influence. And yet they know this was only a temporary reprieve. Earth's path remains uncertain, but now one thing is clear. Humanity chose not to fall, not this time. The storm has passed. Humanity, for now, has stepped back from the edge of annihilation. On board the Varelian flagship Sithari, a quiet stillness has settled across the council chambers. The observers look down at Earth, a world battered, divided, unpredictable, and now more mysterious than ever. After generations of silent observation, the Varelians have reached their final task, to decide. Every civilization they've encountered reaches this moment, a reckoning. The Varelians must assess whether a species is ready for peaceful contact, must be left to continue evolving, or should be permanently quarantined from galactic society. To protect others, Earth has proven to be none of these things easily. Therun, ever wary, begins the deliberation. They remain dangerous, he warns. One narrow escape does not erase a history soaked in violence. They build weapons before homes. They turn on each other over lines drawn on maps and differences they barely understand. To welcome them into the galactic community would be reckless. Other counselors nod in agreement. The evidence is undeniable. Centuries of war, corruption, cruelty, environmental destruction. A species so brilliant yet so bound by its flaws. But then Vesa steps forward. Her voice is calm but resolute. And yet they learn, she says. They remember their tragedies. They mourn their mistakes. They build museums not to glorify their victories, but to warn their future generations. They are the only species we've observed that creates poetry from pain and music from mourning. She plays one final transmission, a live broadcast, from Earth. It is not a battle, nor a protest. It is a gathering. Thousands of people from dozens of nations planting trees together in a scorched forest, once destroyed by war. Children sing, elders weep. Hands once hardened by violence now dig into the soil to bring back life. This, Vesa says, is not weakness. It is resilience. They do not need salvation. They need time. Cirella, the oldest among them, slowly rises. She speaks not with authority but with the weight of memory. When we were young, we were worse, she confesses. It took us millennia to find peace. They have come this far in centuries. We cannot give them a place among the stars, not yet, but we can give them space to grow. The vote is cast. Earth will not be contacted, but it will not be abandoned. The Varelians will retreat from orbit, leaving behind only deep space probes to continue observing from afar. Humanity will never know how close it came to meeting beings from another world, or how narrowly it avoided extinction. The Varelians will mark Earth's file with a rare designation, potential ascension species, conditional. The Sithari begins its departure sequence. Engines hum with harmonic light as the great ship bends space and time, preparing to vanish into the folds of the cosmos. Vesa watches Earth grow smaller beneath them, not as a failure but as a question still being answered. As the stars stretch around them, she records one final log. They are not ready, but they are trying, and in that trying, there is something sacred. And then, in silence, the observers vanish, leaving behind a planet spinning quietly in the dark, unaware that it has just been judged and spared, for now.